Chapter 56, The Day of Porridge Distribution. Several days have passed, and the other two witches, the flame witch Ekta and the insect witch Andini, have also returned to the monastery. Now, apart from Celine who never returns, only the butterfly has not come back. However, the witches couldn't wait for her any longer. Who knows how long it will take for the butterfly, after losing its memory, to return to the monastery. The opportunity to serve porridge was fleeting, so the two newly arrived witches were immediately brought over by Heidi to work. While everyone was preparing for all of this, the news also spread. On that day, the poor people who came to receive porridge brought their families and lined up in front of the newly constructed porridge distribution area. Wearing heavy nuns' robes, the witches were solemnly wrapped from head to toe, with a hint of compassion. They scooped out bowls of steaming hot millet porridge from a large pot and handed them to the poor people who came to receive the porridge. At the same time, they advised them not to hurry, saying, "Be careful, the porridge is still plentiful. Don't rush, it will definitely be enough to eat." The porridge is mixed with a little salted fish and diced radish, which makes its taste somewhat strange. As a result, those who have a little extra money at home are unwilling to come here for charity. However, even though the taste is strange, this is still a clean and nutritious food, so poor people who are truly threatened by hunger will gratefully consume it. This is also some wisdom accumulated by the witches during the long process of serving porridge, in order to filter out the middle class who love to take advantage of others, and select the real poor and vulnerable groups, to facilitate their hunting without any future troubles. The sun gradually moves south. Even though the season is approaching autumn, the midday sun still feels a bit scorching. The nuns are already dressed heavily, and being around the hot stove makes their work even more exhausting. Beads of sweat form a thin layer on their foreheads. In the eyes of those who witnessed this scene, it was even more touching. Some people who were originally not firm in their own beliefs quietly converted their faith, turning their worshipped deities into goddesses of life. During the process of serving porridge, all the nuns were busy outside, so the monastery was empty inside. So Hawthorne hid in the kitchen, ostensibly ordered by Heidi to help with the cooking, but in reality, all he needed to do was press a few buttons at crucial moments to complete the entire cooking process. So, he actually has a lot of free time and can move around freely in the monastery. And he chose to stand behind the wall, eavesdropping on the poor people's casual conversations after receiving the porridge, fully demonstrating what it means to have walls have ears. The investigation team sent by the secret Silver Hall has really been giving us a hard time these past 2 days. They interrogate everyone they meet on the road and suspect everyone they see as if they were cult members. Oh well, why couldn't they find a place like a lumberyard to do something productive? I'll tell you, this crackdown on cultists is fake. Finding scapegoats is real. 300 to 400 lives were taken in just one night. They don't dare to mess with the Shanasar Guild, so they're just talking nonsense about monsters, demons, and cultists here. Disgusting. This place is really unbearable to live in. I must move out. Every morning when I step out, I feel like I can see someone across the street staring at me. Even in my dreams at night, I dream of someone crying at my doorstep. Do you plan to move now? Aren't you afraid that once you move, they will treat you as a cult member evading punishment and directly arrest you? In my opinion, it's better to wait until they leave, and then we can move together. The sound of discussion rose and fell, with Hawthorne mostly remaining silent, quietly listening while organizing the information in his mind, roughly outlining the current situation of the slums. And at that moment, there was a sudden exclamation from outside the wall. "It's Celine. Sister Celine is here." Immediately, Hawthorne's pupils contracted slightly as he eavesdropped. She actually came back. Sigh. There's no way around it. Sooner or later we'll have to face this hurdle. Fortunately, I didn't have any lucky mentality myself. I had already made a plan for Celine's arrival. He thought this way, gritting his teeth secretly, and reluctantly ended the eavesdropping for the time being. He wasn't curious about what Celine looked like in reality. Based on his experience with Heidi and Yuta, it shouldn't be much different from the game. So he suppressed his curiosity and went back to the kitchen to hide. And at this moment, outside the monastery gate, on the street to the east, a magnificent nun's robe adorned with pure white and gold trim, a tall and voluptuous figure, was walking slowly towards this side with her back to the eastern sunlight, coming from the direction of the district hall's main road. It is Celine. In the admiring and reverent gaze of the crowd, she slowly walked to the front of the monastery, among the poor people waiting to receive porridge. She wore black, thin silk gloves that extended to her upper arms. Her hands were clasped together in front of her chest, fingers intertwined. She slightly lowered her head, appearing devout in prayer. Her exquisite face, as smooth and delicate as white jade, carried a compassionate expression. Beneath her light yellow, long eyelashes, her watery blue eyes were filled with sorrow. She wore a thin silk nun's robe adorned with pure white and gold thread, bathed in sunlight, exuding an aura of holiness. However, her body was filled with sin. The luxurious nun's robe could not conceal her ample and upright bosom, which was even larger than Heidi's. Even though she leaned slightly forward, her body still boasted full and impressive curves. And precisely because her body is slightly leaning forward, in a praying posture, her round buttocks curve is clearly outlined by the thin nun's robe. As she moves forward, it trembles visibly to the naked eye. Just a glance is enough to arouse the deepest desires in one's heart. Her figure is so charming, like a perfectly ripe peach, with a crystal clear color, full lines, and an enticing aroma, without any hint of slight decay that comes with overripeness. From any angle, it is an absolutely exquisite delicacy. In theory, such a heinous figure appearing in front of the impoverished, who have not received much education, would surely attract one or two audacious individuals who would extend their dirty and sinful hands towards her. However, in reality, there wasn't. Celine walked through the midst of those poor people, and every man who looked up at her enchanting figure would suddenly lower his head afterwards, with a self-reproachful and remorseful expression, reflecting on his own despicable and filthy thoughts, which dared to harbor lustful desires towards the holy sister Celine. This is the effect of magic, and also the inherent spiritual influence of the great witch Celine. It is because of its existence that she enjoys a high reputation among the poor families and becomes a recognized symbol of goodness and beauty in the Nangang district slums. Chapter 57 Symbol of Goodness and Beauty. Finally, Celine made her way through the crowd and approached a mother and daughter. They were a typical poor family, both with pale faces and dry hair. Despite their clean appearance and clothes, they couldn't hide their destitution. That young mother, although still somewhat delicate in appearance, can now be described as thin to the point of being skin and bones, with a dark forehead and sunken cheeks. It is evident that she has saved all the nutrition for her daughter. The little girl, although her eyes were bright, had no color on her face and coughed from time to time. It was obvious that she had contracted an illness, and her family didn't have any money to see a doctor. Celine walked up to the mother and daughter, and immediately, the young mother knelt down with a thud, her forehead hitting the ground heavily. "Sister Celine, I beg you to have mercy and save my daughter. She has been coughing for 7 days, unable to sleep at night, and can't even eat. She's only 8 years old and has never done anything wrong. She shouldn't have to suffer like this," she pleaded desperately, with tears streaming down her face, but Celine didn't even look at her. She squatted down, disregarding the dirt on the ground that stained her pristine white robe. Her watery eyes gazed tenderly into the little girl's eyes, and then she softly asked, "Child, tell me, what is your dream?" The little girl raised her face. Even though her body was extremely unhealthy, her appearance still couldn't hide her beauty. "I want to become a very powerful person, so that everyone in the slums doesn't have to go hungry or get sick." Cough, cough. A strange itch came from her lungs, and she immediately coughed a few times in a row, with a hint of blood at the corner of her mouth. As for this answer, Celine nodded gently and said, "A very good dream, I wish you success." Saying that, she hugged the girl's delicate body, her forehead pressed against her brow. Soft white light shone from her body and then entered the girl's body. Soon, the little girl's face regained its color, breathing slightly, but no longer coughing. Knowing that her daughter's illness had been treated, the young mother burst into tears and knelt down, repeatedly kowtowing, saying, "Thank you, Miss Celine, thank you." Celine still didn't respond, holding onto the girl's body and then standing up again. Her robe remained clean, not a speck of dust from the ground stained her clothes. The brilliant sunlight shines on her. In this moment, holding her child, she is undoubtedly seen as a Madonna bringing redemption to the many poor people in the slums. Suddenly, the people who came to receive porridge all knelt down, knocking their heads on the ground, shouting the names of Selene and the goddess of life, tears streaming down their faces, and some even unable to speak due to their overwhelming emotions. Inside the kanji house, a group of witches looked at this hypocritical scene and couldn't help but feel emotional. Those who knew Selene were already aware that this witch, who enjoyed manipulating people's destinies, had set her sights on that poor little girl. In the coming years, she will experience ups and downs that ordinary people can hardly imagine. She will be ignited with hope for life by the gift of fate, and then have everything taken away by the so-called fate. She will be tormented to the point of despair, and eventually completely collapse, descending into an extreme anti-human terrorist seeking revenge against society. The grateful mother and daughter will never know that what seems like a favorable fate today is actually their first step into the abyss, with no possibility of turning back. The sun gradually moved westward, and the last person who received porridge left with their bowl, bringing an end to a day of serving porridge. The witches returned to the interior of the monastery, but despite their exhaustion from the entire day's work, they didn't have a chance to rest. After closing the monastery's gate, Selene immediately gathered them all together and then asked, "Where is dear? Does anyone know where she went?" The witches looked at each other and then shook their heads in unison. "No, we have no idea where she went, and we haven't found any clues in these past few days either." After a pause, Quibisi asked, "Master, what happened to the butterfly?" In the past, it was common for butterflies to delay their return by more than 10 days or even a month. And now, just 1 week after the night of the witch has passed, in their eyes, it is normal for the butterfly to not have returned to the monastery yet. I have predicted that the butterfly is currently in the Nangang district. However, in the near future, she will encounter a very significant crisis, Selene explained with deep concern in her tone. Only we can help her, which is why I rushed back to inform you all about this. Building this monastery was Selene's idea. She hoped that every witch could be like sisters, helping each other and spending the witches' night together, enjoying a peaceful and happy life without the need to consume and torment human souls. Therefore, now that something is about to happen to the butterfly, she is coming back so urgently. She is in the Nangang district, yet she still encounters danger. Could it be, murmured Chui Bizi to herself. Then, her gaze turned towards Yuta. Suddenly, Yuta's face turned ugly. Selene's light yellow pupils also looked over, her face calm, as if it was a sign of anger. "Yuta, tell me, what exactly happened in the slums on the night of the witch's night?" This spiritual pressure, along with the authority accumulated by being a grand witch for many years, is very effective in dealing with the other witches in the convent. No one dares to lie in front of Selene. But unfortunately, now Yuta has a new belief. And her will has become firm because of her devotion. She nodded and lowered her head, as if making a self-criticism, saying, "The Shinasagang Association and the Amazons are engaged in a fierce battle, with the devil involved behind the scenes. Of course, I didn't know about these things at first. I just felt that my situation was being disturbed, and then I went mad and lost control uncontrollably. Sorry, Selene, and all the sisters. This matter has escalated too much, and I bear an undeniable responsibility." Chui Bai-Si sneered, "It's good that you know. Just because of your disturbance, the Black Cane Tower has sent people to investigate. Originally the Nangang district was peaceful and there wouldn't be any danger even if the butterfly roamed for a few days. But now, if we are even slightly careless, I'm afraid all of us will have to be buried with you." Yuta remained silent, only clenching her fists slightly. The other witches dared not speak, not even Heidi, who didn't dare to defend her at this moment. Only when Selene, who can control Tsuebi silk, speaks up at this time. Fortunately, she didn't blame anyone. This matter is not entirely Yuta's fault. She was also the victim of someone's plot. Moreover, even without this incident, with the two major forces clashing and the devil intervening, Nangang district is destined to become chaotic, and it will definitely attract the attention of the Black Wand Tower in the end. I will already be very happy if you can come back safely. However, Yuta, you must make thorough preparations in advance for the next Witch's Night. Chapter 58 Celine's Hobbies. This is Celine and Tiffany, the master and servant duo, using their usual tactics in the monastery. Tiffany starts by unleashing her firepower, mocking and belittling the witches who make mistakes, and then Celine steps in to comfort them and make them feel warmth. This is a skill, and also a trick. The atmosphere in the room eased slightly, and after a pause, Celine continued, "This time, it's up to Yuta to take responsibility for bringing back the butterfly and making sure it's done well." Yuta instantly raised his head, exerted a forceful tap, and said loudly, "Please rest assured, I will handle the trouble I brought and definitely bring the butterfly back safely, without letting anyone suspect the monastery." Chui Baixi's eyebrows immediately raised. Continuing to play the role of her sharp-tongued mad dog, she snapped at Yuta. "Her? Are you sure she won't mess it up again?" "Master, I think it would be better if I handle this. It will definitely be more discreet and secure." However, Celine simply shook her head gently. "No, Tiffany, I have already foreseen it. This matter can only be entrusted to Yuta. Anyone else, including myself, getting involved would be very dangerous. If not for this, I would have personally gone to the slums to find the trace of the butterfly and bring her back." Upon hearing this, Chui Baixi no longer fought for it, but her little mouth continued to chatter. "Then let's trust this guy one more time. If he messes up again this time, it will make the people from the Black Cane Tower suspect the monastery." She continued to exert mental pressure, and Yuta lowered her head again, so the atmosphere in the room became somewhat heavy once more. Seeing this, Heidi quickly tried to smooth things over and said, "By the way, Celine, I'm sure you had a fruitful trip again, right? How are all the pets you used to have? To be honest, I've also been raising pets recently, and I really want to learn some experience in training them from you." She smiled brightly, knowing that Celine liked to show off her pets to them, so she took the initiative to bring up the topic and help Yuta out. Upon hearing this, Chui Baixi immediately turned her head and looked at her with jealous and resentful eyes. However, this sharp-tongued witch, despite her love for sarcasm, is not foolish. She would not choose to engage in a verbal battle with two witches at the same time, especially since she believes she lost the last argument with Heidi. Therefore, in the end, she swallowed all the dirty words in her belly. In front, Celine smiled. "So you have such thoughts, it's necessary for him to have more exposure to the outside world. But with your abilities, there shouldn't be any problems." After a pause, she continued, "Oh, by the way, Heidi, maybe you can help Yuta. The prophecy shows that although there is some risk, there might be unexpected good things happening." Heidi and Yuta exchanged a glance, both unable to hide their astonishment in their expressions. At this moment, they suddenly realized that the key to safely finding the butterfly may not lie within themselves, but in their shared connection, their great master. After saying all this, Celine then cast a spell, and in mid-air, the faces of young men and women appeared one by one. "Come closer, and I'll show you the little pets I've been raising for the past 2 years." The witches all gathered around, their eyes filled with curiosity. Heidi breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that the situation had been successfully resolved. And at this moment, facing the faces in the air, Celine slowly introduced, "This girl comes from a poor fisherman's family. Her father is an alcoholic, abusive, and a gambler. She and her mother depend on each other. So I let her father win a large sum of money, and then he died from a fall while drunk. I let her take that money to go to school, and she even got first place in her class. Then, half a year before her graduation, I let a man capture her heart, deceive her of all her savings, and make her mother fall ill with a terminal illness due to lack of money. Oh, you have no idea how amazing her expression was at that time. And then there's this young, strong, and physically fit young man who works as a laborer. I had him noticed by the captain of the Mithril District Security Team because of his strength and fitness. He received the best training and education, but unfortunately, he also got addicted to drugs. Now, he's in this state where he's neither human nor ghost. And then there's her, who had just recently secured a stable performing job in the Muse District with her guitar playing skills, and also found a precious love. But then she was raped by her stepfather while he was drunk, not only disfiguring her, but also breaking her fingers, impregnating her, and contracting a sexually transmitted disease. The images are projected one by one, with a holy smile on Celine's face, as she narrates the tragic story she has created, completely destroying young people who were once ambitious and full of potential. Her tone is filled with satisfaction. And the witches watching, looking at those faces of pain, regret, and self-blame, as if they could hear their screams and cries, suddenly each one's face became intoxicated, as if they could still smell the fragrance emitted by those souls in despair. Heidi and Yuta forced a smile and joined the other witches in their revelry. However, deep inside, their values had been adjusted to be like hawthorns. At this moment, all they could feel was endless sorrow and pain. And they are also very clear that if Celine is not purified, such tragedies will only increase. Meanwhile, on the other side, inside the monastery's bathroom. Said to be a bathroom, in reality, this used to be Yuta's room. Every witch in the convent has a separate room to house the food they capture. Now, after being purified by him, Yuta naturally spends every day in the dormitory, which is Heidi's room, sleeping together. The original room is no longer needed, so Hawthorne took it over and transformed it into a bathroom for 100 purification points. The main function of this building is to allow your character to quickly recover from fatigue and re-enter the battlefield by paying some coins. In today's terms, it would be equivalent to paying a few purification points. However, since the building is already here, even if you don't pay purification points, this bathroom can still be used, just without the additional, quick fatigue removal, magical effect. Oh, the secondary function of the bathroom is to unlock and have a silver party CG with the nuns. Cough. Hawthorne had a busy day, although his main activity was just clicking a few times on the system interface and eavesdropping on other people's conversations while standing behind the wall. However, due to his poor physical condition and not yet fully recovered to the level of a normal person, he naturally felt tired. At this time, taking a hot bath is naturally the most appropriate thing to do. Chapter 59, Architecture, Bathroom. On the east side of the bathroom is a row of showerheads. As long as you infuse them with magic or cast the spell, create water, a continuous flow of hot water will gush out from them. In the southwest corner, there is a sauna made of wood. In the northwest corner is a huge bath, big enough to accommodate 10 people soaking in it. Hawthorne doesn't like steam saunas, so at this moment, in this large bath, there is only him lying in it, letting the hot water cover his body, while his mind empties and rests quietly. He was sorting out the rumors he had heard during the day, trying to extract valuable information from them, while also waiting for the two witches taken away by Celine to come back and tell him what exactly had happened. And before that, he needs to avoid overthinking and wasting his energy on meaningless speculation. Not making him wait too long, not long after, the sound of the door being pushed open rang out. Hawthorne turned his head slightly and saw Heidi and Yuta walking into the bathroom, one after the other. Actually, he doesn't really need to look. Besides the two of them in this room, there won't be anyone else coming. He looked away and soaked in the water, continuing to wait for the two girls. At the door, Yuta closed the bathroom door, while Heidi had already taken off her thick nun's robe and hung it on the coat rack. Then she let her green, silky long hair cascade down, completely naked, and walked confidently towards the bathtub. Her full peaks stood tall and firm, her soft abdomen showing no excess fat. The exaggerated waist-to-hip ratio outlined a rounded curve. Her fair and plump thighs swayed back and forth as she walked, tightly pressed together on the inside, resembling that of a virgin. In the central triangular area, neatly trimmed hair concealed the most beautiful part, making one unable to resist the urge to delve deep and explore. She walked gracefully into the bathhouse, sat next to Hawthorne, and hugged his arm. Compared to her, Yuta's movements were slightly awkward. After hesitating for a while, she finally took off all her underwear, blushing and covering her flat chest and delicate private area. But she soon jumped into the bath, sandwiched between Heidi on the left and Hawthorne on the right. Hawthorne stretched out his arms and embraced two girls before asking, "What did Celine talk about this time when she came back?" Heidi slightly twisted her body, using her ample chest to press against his big arm, and slowly said, she predicted that Butterfly would come home late this time because something unexpected is happening in the slums, so she asked me and Yuta to go and bring her back. Speaking, her hand moved downwards and actively grasped his lower body. Her soft little hand completely ignored the resistance of the water, gently and smoothly stroking. Both of you? Hawthorne raised an eyebrow. Is this also the result of her prophecy? Yes, there will be unexpected gains, Yuta replied, so, both of us suspect that the key to saving the butterfly is not in us, but in you, the master. Saying this, seeing that the most crucial task was taken away because of her shyness and hesitation, Yuta gritted her teeth slightly, hesitated for a moment, then stood up and sat on the edge of the bathtub, cradling Hawthorne's head and gently placing it on her lap. At this moment, she was completely naked, so as long as Hawthorne turned his head, he could touch the hair on her private parts, as well as that delicate and hidden secret cave. Hawthorne did not turn his head, but kept his upward gaze, admiring the smooth abdomen of the Blade Witch and her lovely petite breasts. Yuta's complexion became even more rosy, but she still forced herself to finish everything, hoping to make her master happy. That's right, I also feel the same way. Hawthorne reminisced about the past, trying to find relevant plot points from his memory, but in the end, he was completely clueless. Forget it. It seems that I will have to work hard to achieve this unexpected gain. Well, our next plan is to find the butterfly. He continued, as for now. He turned his head slightly and looked at Yuta's delicate face. Yuta, let's do it again. I seem to have found a little feeling. Let me experience it again. Maybe I can learn magic will. Yuta nodded gently, then pressed the middle fingers of both hands against his temples, closed his eyes, and a steady stream of magic flowed into his mind. Hawthorne closed his eyes, sensing that wonderful state where the soul is completely sealed by magic, yet still connected to the body, even in a more heightened state, in his own way, to comprehend it all. Knowing that her master was at a critical moment, even Heidi stopped her little hand and nervously looked at him. The hot water in the bathtub is still steaming, countless steam slowly rising in the air, hitting the ceiling and condensing into cold water droplets, then slowly falling down. After a long while, finally, Hawthorne opened his eyes again. Deep within his green eyes, there was a faint flicker of blue light. Heidi, he called softly, try casting an illusion on me. Heidi immediately cast a spell called Sleeping Spell, without any hesitation, trying to make him have a dream of ruling the world. However, Hawthorne blinked hard a few times and managed to resist the influence of this magic, remaining completely awake. Success! Congratulations, Master! Yuta slowly opened his eyes and whispered. Hawthorne responded, filled with joy. Since Heidi's spell was already ineffective on him, it meant that the majority of the mages in Liber Port, including Butterfly, were no longer able to interfere with his free will. Now, the certainty of capturing the butterfly has increased even more. He smiled and then accessed the system. He saw that the Magic Energy Summoning section had indeed added the option of Magic Energy Will. He felt relieved and then hesitated while his finger hovered over his own profession. Do you want to promote to level 3 now? To reach level 3, you need 600 purification points. Hawthorne has already saved enough and can now upgrade. After reaching level 3, his strength will undoubtedly see a significant increase. Not only will his maximum mana capacity expand once again, but he will also be able to learn second-tier spells. However, after experiencing so many things, he has long understood that with the system's nature, even if he were to level up to level 3, he would probably only receive a second-tier spell that is not very useful in battle. Those spells that are of great practical value still have to be learned on his own. However, books that record the second ring spells are no longer common on the market, nor are they found in introductory books from the various colleges of magic. They are only found in the textbooks of higher-level courses in the major colleges. At least in Hawthorne's 5 introductory books, there is no second-level magic. There are not many textbooks for higher grades, and they are very difficult to find on the market. This is not a matter of price, but rather the fact that the majority of people cannot even grasp the basics of magic, so they wouldn't buy these advanced books. At most, They would buy an introductory book and try to fulfill their spring and autumn dreams of, what if I could also learn magic? Without a market, naturally no one will sell this kind of thing. This is a point that makes him very worried. He now greatly misses the situation in the game where he could simply click on the interface, spend some money, and easily learn the 9-ring spell. Oh well, forget it. For now, let's just continue reading these introductory books that I have on hand. He shook his head slightly, gathering his thoughts. Apart from the aforementioned, there is another point, which is that when an evil sorcerer reaches level 3, they have to make another crucial decision. Heidi, Yuta, he whispered, I need your advice. For a 3rd level magic contract, should I choose the blade contract, the chain contract, or the book contract? Chapter 60 Level 3 Warlock. After reaching level 3, the sorcerer needs to choose one of these 3 magic contracts. Each of them represents a different path of development. The Blade Pact is about wielding weapons, focusing on physical damage output with magic as a secondary means. The Chain of Magic contract is used to raise powerful magical pets, which can cooperate with each other to unleash different abilities. The Book of Magic contracts is a pathway to assist in spellcasting. With it, Hawthorne no longer needs to spend a massive amount of time memorizing spells in his mind, but can instead transcribe them into his own spellbook and use them freely. Of course, it still requires the expenditure of mana. Not only that, but human intelligence has its limits after all. Even for those with exceptional talent, it is impossible to remember too many spells at the same time. In the end, they may even have to choose to forget some spells in order to free up brain capacity for new ones. And having such a contract magic book, the increase in the total amount of spells that the spellcaster can master is self-evident. In addition, there is actually a 4th option called Seal of the Demon contract. However, this path is to assist in protecting teammates, so it was automatically ignored by Hawthorne. I have cheats, I don't want to be a support teammate who takes damage. In short, this is a choice that a sorcerer must make at level 3. They must choose one of them in order to learn many more powerful magic summonings and continue to increase their strength after reaching higher levels. Heidi's little hand climbed back onto his lower body, her nimble fingers gently playing with his body while suggesting, I think both the chain and the book are possible. If you choose the former, the master can treat us as magical pets, with better coordination. And if you choose the latter, the master can cast spells with peace of mind, while we stand in front to block. Hawthorne nodded slightly, as he also had inclinations in this regard. The most painful thing for a sorcerer who chose the Pact of the Chain was not being able to find excellent familiars, but now he had a group of powerful witches, and this problem was solved from the very beginning. And the magic contract of the book is the same. The average sorcerer's mana is too short, so even if they have learned a vast amount of spells, they don't have much opportunity to use them in a battle. And Hawthorne's blue stripes are so long that they can be fully replenished in just 1 hour, so choosing the Book of Demonic Pacts will definitely allow him to unleash a power far beyond that of a normal sorcerer. This is his idea, and Yuta pondered for a moment, then said, I recommend the Blade Demon Pact, and I have 2 reasons for it. Firstly, I am skilled in using blades for combat. If the Master chooses the Blade Pact, I can fully share all of my experience with the Master. Hawthorne nodded, and that's the truth. He could definitely draft a new contract, making Yuta and Heidi his masters just like before, and share his power with them. It was completely doable, just like having both of them serve him at the same time. Normally, it is not common to have multiple masters. After all, the master is essentially the boss, while the sorcerer is the employee. It has always been a situation where there is a boss with a group of employees, not the other way around. But he and the 2 witches were in a mutual agreement, so naturally they could ignore this convention. Secondly, currently speaking, those 2 magic contracts can indeed rapidly enhance the owner's strength, but what about in the long run? Yuta continued, especially if we encounter an anti-magic field? Hawthorne was taken aback, then nodded gently, that's true. Anti-magic force field, octagon spell, the nemesis of all magic, and also the spell that all spellcasters despise the most. Without this thing, all the spellcasters can freely control the wind and rain, destroy the heavens and the earth. But with it, The proud and noble mages can only fight like ordinary warriors, rolling up their sleeves and engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Although it is said that the spell, 8-ring magic, can only be used by spellcasters of level 15 and there are not many people who have mastered the spell, anti-magic force field, it definitely exists. At the thought of this, Hawthorne couldn't help but want to give himself a slap. Damn it, you're supposed to be a player. It's only been a month since you crossed over, and you've already forgotten that pure spellcasters will end up crippled in the late game after witnessing the actual effects of spells and the prestigious status of spellcasters a couple of times? He cursed himself inwardly, then remembered something and turned his head to ask, Heidi, with the massive supply of magic to me like this, without affecting your own combat power, how high can you supply me? Upon hearing this, Heidi immediately looked troubled. If that's the case. I'm sorry, Master, but my magical power is limited. I may only be able to support you in becoming a level 5 spellcaster and casting spells up to the 3rd circle. As expected, Hawthorne let out a sigh in the game background. The masters of the occult that the sorcerers signed with were all super bosses whose power was enough to influence the world. So, reaching level 20 in one go and mastering the 9-ring spells wouldn't be a problem. And Heidi, she is just a witch who hasn't even mastered the 5-ring spell. Although she is considered powerful in the Port of Libel, she is still not impressive enough in the world. In that case, the benefits of the Book of Demon Pact are not actually that. After speaking, he extended his finger and lightly tapped on the level column on the system. Buzz. A hazy white light lit up, and new knowledge and power flooded into his mind. Heidi also felt her power being drawn away, so she obediently submerged into the water, opened her small mouth, and took in his already erect massive object, allowing the flow of power between them to become even smoother. Ah! Hawthorne closed his eyes slightly, feeling Heidi's lilac tongue skillfully swirling around his lower body. 4 images appeared in his mind, a sword, a chain, a book, and a talisman. And without hesitation, he chose that sword and, through his mind, began calling out for Yuta's consciousness. In reality, with his thigh as a pillow, Yuta's complexion became even more rosy. But in the end, he still lowered his head and took the initiative to kiss his lips, extending his tongue to seek from him. In this state of extreme bliss, he gained some enlightenment in his heart, and his level also rose to the 3rd level. After releasing from Heidi's mouth, Hawthorne hugged the 2 girls satisfactorily and simultaneously opened his system to check the improvements he had gained from this upgrade. Blade Pact. At any moment, you can magically create a contract weapon. The contract weapon is in sync with your thoughts, allowing you to use it as effortlessly as your own fingers. If you are separated from it by more than 1 meter for over a minute, the contract is released and the weapon disappears automatically. You can also release the contract with a single thought. You can also spend an hour of your time to turn a magic weapon you possess into your pact weapon. If you do so, you can integrate the weapon into your body. You can release the pact at any time, and when the weapon is inside you, releasing the pact will cause it to pop out of your body. You can only possess 1 contract weapon at a time. Above is the complete content of Blade's Pact. Hawthorne then raised his hand, and immediately, accompanied by twinkling starlight, an ordinary long sword appeared in his hand. And with the change of his mind, this sword shattered into twinkling starlight again, and recondensed into a warhammer. He nodded slightly and then disbanded his weapon. The description of the Blade Demon Pact is almost identical to that in the game, and for the time being, this contract weapon cannot provide him with much combat power improvement. He still needs to master more magical summoning and powerful weapons in order to unleash its maximum effectiveness. Raising to level 3, the greatest improvement in one's combat power is mana. Remaining mana, 14/14. Before, at level 2, the maximum mana was only 6 points. With this level up, the blue bar almost doubled. And meditating for an hour can fully replenish it all. This is the greatest improvement to his combat effectiveness. In addition, upon reaching level 3, he also gained the ability to cast second-tier spells and automatically mastered a second-tier spell called Wind Creation Spell. And this spell, well, it can blow people away, disperse toxic gas, extinguish open flames. So it cannot be said to be completely useless, but it can only be said to have very limited usefulness. Hawthorne couldn't help but sigh, then comforted himself, forget it, I can still learn more spells. A proper warlock only has 6 mana points at level 3, so he's already doing pretty well. After consoling himself in this way, he looked at his own mana value and then became ambitious. Heidi, Yuta, he said, pay attention to the movements of the other witches. As soon as Celine leaves this time, we will immediately start purifying the Flame Witch and the Abomination Witch.